Good afternoon, and welcome to the 7th Annual Commercial Real Estate Forum. I'm Vince Nader, and I'm delighted to inform you that I am not on the panel today. Mark, good decision. In lieu of a rousing discussion of potential tax implications of tax legislation on the real estate industry, this year's forum is highlighted by a keynote speaker, whom I'll introduce in just a few minutes, as well as a panel that is ready to discuss the topic of the day, the impact of millennials on real estate. But first, let me introduce you a little bit about Kiter for those of you that are not aware. I'm one of the partners at Kiter. We're a CPA firm here in Richmond. We're one of the largest independent CPA firms headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We have 70 total CPAs and about 140 total people on staff. The real estate and construction industry is one of our largest focus areas, with about 15 industry specialists focusing on real estate clients primarily in Central Virginia. Our clients in the real estate industry include many of you, developers, investors, real estate funds, property managers, as well as general contractors and specialty contractors. Excuse me. We assist these clients in many ways, including entity structuring, transaction consulting, as well as some specialty items such as rehab credits, enterprise zone grants, and cost segregation studies. In addition, we have HUD audit services and our traditional audit and tax services. There are various areas that we have been focused on this year, including the new regulations from the Virginia tax code regarding rehab credits and the audit requirements, as well as the net investment income tax, passive and non-passive rules, and the real estate professional status and how it might impact a good number of you guys. So that's enough about Kiter. On behalf of our hosts, Commonwealth Commercial Partners and Lingerfelt Commonwealth Partners, I'd like to thank all of the participants today in the forum, and especially the sponsors of today's forum, which include Troutman Sanders, Zenith Bank, Sauer Properties, Kiter, Rutherford, a Marsh & McLennan agency, Fortress Investment Group, and Dominion Construction Partners. A few housekeeping items before we get to the rest of the show. If you have your cell phones, please remember to silence them. The restrooms are located out in the hallway across from the registration table. And at the end of the forum, there will be a reception for everyone to go out and have a drink and mingle. So please make yourself available and don't rush out of here in too big of a hurry. So now I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker. Today we're joined by Mr. Christopher Lee, President and CEO of CEL and Associates Incorporated. Mr. Lee has over 30 years of experience in strategic and long-range planning, performance improvement, compensation, and organizational development within the real estate industry. His diversified experience allows him to contribute an interdisciplinary approach to the overall process of analyzing and guiding real estate organizations. Mr. Lee and his company have completed assignments for over 500 real estate firms, directed the preparation of 6,500 preliminary business plans for troubled assets, and they developed the initial nationwide troubled asset review data system for the Federal Home Loan Bank Board. Easy for me to say. He has authored several books, including 2012's Transformational Leadership in the New Age of Real Estate. He has served on the advisory board for the Business School and the Real Estate School at San Diego State University, and recently served on the board of Cogdell Spencer, a publicly traded REIT. He is active in many organizations, including the National Apartment Association, the Urban Land Institute, and the U.S. Green Building Council. Mr. Lee has his PhD in Management and Organizational Development. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Chris Lee.
Good afternoon to everybody. I don't know why you guys are standing over there, unless you're over 50 and need to leave earlier, but there's plenty of seats down here. You're welcome to it here. It's great to be here. This is probably one of the more exciting times to be in real estate. because you're at that place where we have a huge generational transfer going on. And it's a generational transfer from the aging boomers to the soon-to-be in charge, I know that's a scary thought, millennials. And as we look at that and go forward here, these are just the kind of things that I think you need to look at because they are truly reshaping our industry. They are reshaping how real estate is bought, sold, occupied, all those kind of things. So this is a good time. It's a great topic for you, for all of you. Today I'm going to talk also about what you need to know about millennials, what you should know about millennials, and what you're afraid to know about millennials that'll scare all of you, and this will be more of a therapy session than a real estate session. But before I start here, I'd like to know, just by show of hands, how many are millennials in the room? Just if you can raise your hand for millennials. Okay, so those are all the ones with ADD. All right, and how many millennials in the room? Just raise your hand. Okay, well, it's a combination here. So what I like to do here is I'm going to talk really about now is really millennials. Who are they? Going to go into the impact on the industry itself, going to go impact on what it means to operations in real estate, also talk about what it means to each of some of the asset classes in real estate, and some of the things that attract millennials, why they like some markets and not others, what millennials do with money, some of the trends, and then end up with some predictions that are really driven by millennials that are affecting real estate asset classes across the board. There's a whole bunch of slides here. I'm going to go fairly quickly. Those who would like a copy of my slides, just please give me your card afterwards. I'll be glad to email it to you. You can take it home, give it to your wife, do therapy with your child, whatever you have to do. But this is there. This is about what we're going to do. So millennials, who are they? Every single generation is classified by when you were born. And so if you look at that chart there, we have the blue bars. They're toast. They're dead or almost dead. That's the GI generation, so those are in their 90s now. We have the yellow bars, that's pre-death. Those are they're kind of in their 80s and late 70s here. Then we have the boomers, the red bars that are there, and they clearly have been the largest until this month. The Census Bureau just announced that the millennials have overtaken the boomers as the largest alive generation today. But the red bars are the boomers. The green bars are the X generation. I'll talk about them a little bit here, but this is the loser group. They're like bologna in a sandwich. They're between the boomers who are in charge and the millennials who are going to be in charge, and they're kind of sitting there going, what did I get out of this thing, But also, don't forget the Xers have the highest rate of incarceration. How many are Xers here? Just raise. Okay. Highest rate of incarceration, highest divorce rates, stupidest generation in the history of America, according to, this group it's tough. So that's why we just go out and hire millennials and kind of just pass the Xers off. And then we have the other bars I won't talk about, which is the next generation, the Zs, coming on right now, and they're entering their early teens right now. So this is just some things about millennials that absolutely scare you. 10% of the millennials, the college graduates today coming out of college, believes Judge Judy's on the Supreme Court. I don't know if that says something about our education system or what they do. 77 millennials cannot name a senator from their home state. 43% under the age of 30 rate socialism much higher than capitalism as their preferred economic structure. Only 20% of millennials vote. 55% of millennials believe their generation is lazier than any other generation that's happened, so they're validating what some of us think about them. And a lot of them get their news from BuzzFeed. If you go to BuzzFeed today, you would be shocked at what the headlines are on there, like, what to do with your cat who doesn't sleep, and all this kind of stupid things. But hey, that's where they get their news, who's dating whom and what star got promoted and whatever. But millennials were raised. They were raised and why their values are what they are. They were raised on a lot of seminal events, like Columbine, 9/11, the Iraq-Afghanistan War, Title IX, in colleges, the recession, the anemic job recovery that we've had in the last several years, social networking, clearly the internet of everything. They've been exposed to that from day one. They don't know what rotary phones are or dial phones. They just don't understand that. So they were impacted by the elections, the X Games, Barney, Beanie Babies, But the typical phrases for millennials are, They need more focus. They need more discipline. They sleep way too much. I mean, that's my daughter, trust me. They get too much attention. They spend too much time on the internet. They like actors and activists more than they like the movie. Who's in the movie? Who's going to be there, And they have manners but speak in a very different language than many of us. They're around 20 to 39 years of age right now, about 75, 80 million strong. 1 in 10 of them have a non-U.S. parent. So that means that impact of Hispanics has been enormous on that generation. They're called the Echo generation, the Y generation, the millennial generation. They were given so much protective concerns. The X generation, which was raised, they call them latchkey kids, because their parents, typically the wife and the mother, entered the workforce in a massive way, and they tended to do a lot more things at home by themselves. So they were not really protected. When you came to this millennial generation, they were overprotected. They had helicopter parents. They had more tutors, soccer tutors, math tutors, history tutors, eating tutors, whatever the heck they had. They had more tutors than you can speak of here. They had coaches. And some of that generation had mothers of that generation that were more educated, and their mothers were better educated than their fathers, because women were accelerating during that particular period of time. Everything that millennials were raised with had moral lessons to them. All the little cartoons they watched, the books they read, the things that you might have read to them, all had moral lessons. Say no to drugs, hug the whales, hug the trees, hug everybody, I mean, everything was all kumbaya land for these folks. And they were, again, overly protected. When you took a baby boomer and sent them out to take a bike ride, a millennial for a bike ride, they had to have a helmet, they had to have knee pads, they had to have shoulder pads, they looked like a Pillsbury Doughboy, when they walk around here. They were all overly protected all the time, and that happened. So there were new standards that came out by education for these. They were raised under very traditional values, but clearly they were forming their because of the parents' active involvement, they were forming their own sets of values from that. They were very much socially aware, environmentally aware, and they absolutely believe that they have been designated to supply a sense of community. Because remember, they were raised on Barney and Big Bear and all those kind of impactful in messaging media, and that's why the sense of community is very much large with them. They were also raised, don't have drugs, say no on drugs, no sex, no violence, they had no on everything, and so everything was raised in this overall abstinence kind of environment. They were exposed to higher education standards, particularly in the SAT. Remember, we always had the SAT, the 2 standards, and they got the written exam. No other generation had that. And it's also interesting in generations that every single generation had an increase in their SAT scores until we got to the Xers. They dropped. The first generation, history of America, they dropped. They got dumber. And then the millennials went back up, got higher again than the time before it dropped, and they were also added another test. So these folks have been really, really educated. They were raised to excel, raised to achieve, raised to do things. They're very multitaskers, but they are so easily distracted. And they're the first generation that in many cases know more than their parents via the internet. But they have a short attention span. They like structure, but don't give me too much, don't constrain me, don't tell me what to do here. They're holistic, not necessarily always analytical. They want constant feedback. I mean, one of the things you do with a millennial, if they have one working for them, you always have to compliment them, and they're so ADD sometimes. What you do, if you want to keep them, is just give them a cube, and every quarter, change the cube. Okay, just move them around the office. Hey, I got a new cube. I got promoted. And they can focus for about a quarter, then move them again. But they have a strong sense of morality. They're very much that way. So how does it impact us? How does it impact the real estate industry? Well, it's very clear. They've driven to that Internet of Things. The Internet of Things drives online shopping. Online shopping or internet shopping is about 7 or 8%. Not all of it's them, but they've driven a lot of that. They go to ratings. There's all the ratings, Yelp ratings, apartment ratings, all those things they read. It's impacted our industry and how people respond to that. They're very much collaborators. They're very much communicators. Remember, because they're raised in that sense of community, so they want to be part of that. And as a result of that, traditional office space has changed dramatically, and I'll go into that in just a minute. Technology integration, working remotely, that's something they believe is not only what they like to do, they feel entitled to do, they even feel it's a right to be able to work remotely. So they're used to that. They're used to all of their iPhones and iPads and all the communications that's there. They're digital natives. Everything for them is one click away, just a click away. It's amazing. I talked to our daughter, who's one of them, and I just said, she spouts off on some statistic. Where'd you find it? I got it on the internet. How do you know it's true? It's on the internet. I mean, I heard it from Wikipedia, whatever. It's like they believe everything that's on the internet is true. And it's amazing, too, like with our daughter. I asked her the other day, I said, how many friends do you have? She said, I have 700 friends. How can you have 700 friends? They're on Facebook, Dad, duh. I'm like, okay, I get it, But they are all about that internet. They're all about that digital native. They're all about just one click away. They're very socially aware. They're driving the change in company values in many real estate firms. Where multifamily firms are having to adopt charities as part of the leasing program to make sure that they demonstrate that they're socially involved in the community. Where companies are having community activities and community events and volunteerism. Where they're adopting the green technologies and green aspects of that. All this is driven by that new value system that the millennials have brought into bear. They prefer mobility. That's why they like to rent. And clearly they like informality in terms of just reshaping the overall management strategies and how things are done. And when you look at this shift that's happened here in our industry, we've gone from a very geocentric industry, which is really driven by the marketplace and the personalities of the founders of real estate firms, moving our way up into relationships, which is, again, where millennials drive. They love the collaboration. They love to talk. They love to share. They love to do that kind of stuff. They move to much more knowledge-based. They want is information. They're digging constantly for information and feedback from that. We've also moved clearly from buildings to customers. Where before we were very building-centric as an industry, we've moved into services-centric and then now into customer-centric. Why customer? Because it's very much about relationships. It's very much about communication. It's very much about how the millennials tend to want to view things. It's all relationship-based, and also providing solutions. Solutions are what millennials like. They want to be able to say, I can solve the problem. We'll get the problem. Let's talk about it. We'll figure it out. We'll collaborate. It's all that. Our industry is shifting, and shifting because of that. We've shifted from on-site to online. We've moved from sort of boots on the ground sort of mentality, moving all the way up to predictive analytics. We have a multifamily firm we're working with in Atlanta right now. They have when you come in to lease any apartment in their community, the leasing agent has an iPad. And the iPad has about 15 questions on it. They give that iPad to the prospective resident, and they say, would you please fill out this before we do our tour? They'll fill out that survey, and then the leasing agent hits calculate, and that particular, how the person answered each question, what options they selected, gives them a set of predictive questions to talk about when you're leasing the apartment to that individual with the highest propensity to close. Every person's different. That's how we've shifted up into that, very much driven by a mindset of being predictive and much more about big data than we have in the past. But millennials also have very different views of our industry. For millennials, it's all about making a difference. When you recruit a millennial, when you talk to millennials, you want to talk about how we can make a difference, making our community better, making the products better, maybe a better retail center, a better office building for better work environment, for an apartment for better living conditions. Everything has to make a difference. And you can see from the other generations, there are very, very different perspectives. But millennials also have an impact on operations and how you operate a company. And when you look at that, they have different views of compensation. Millennials believe they want rewards for their contribution, whatever that means. And obviously, boomers want to be recognized. I want to have more money, whatever. They have different views of how they get recognized here. Work has to have meaning. Public praise is important. Pat on the backs are important. Regular reviews and feedback, not annual, but sometimes monthly or quarterly, is what they need. They don't want to wait to the end of the year, so work has to have that meeting. They have different views of work schedules. They want to have meaningful hours. They want to work deadlines and goals and not necessarily just schedules. Give me a task, give me a function, put me in a team. Let's work that together. Very, very different. Where boomers obviously did whatever hours, worked as many hours as they could to get it done, whether it's 15, 18, 20 hours a day. Very, very different contrast. They have different views of senior management. When you interview and talk to millennials, Their view of management is, prove it to me. You tell me you're going to help the community, prove it to me. You tell me that you care about my career, prove it to me. You care about training, prove it to me. They are a prove-it generation. They will not buy off on just phrases, cute little posters, cute little things that say, this is what we do. They want you to demonstrate and show that you actually do that. They do want work-life balance. They clearly do that. Every single statistic is in that category. They want time off for their friends, time off for their family, time off to do personal things. They want that time. They are not going to put the same kind of hours, the same kind of initiative that the boomers and other generations perhaps in the past have done. Because remember, they were raised in that kind of environment to have that balance in their life, and that's something that they're doing. They have different views of teamwork. They grew up on teamwork. Every single thing they learned in school, everything they learned on Sesame Street, or everything they learned on any TV show was all about working together in a team. And that is something that's very different from other generations that were before them. That's why we're shaping how you run a company. They also have different views of communicating. They'll communicate with their Twitter, with their Facebook. They'll communicate by text messaging. They will communicate very differently, very differently. And so when you try to communicate and you wonder why there's a generation gap and why you're not connecting with that, it's because you're applying your generational philosophies into some other generation who views the world very differently than you do. And they have very different views of technology. I can't tell how many real estate firms we go to, you talk about putting a new technology system, the predictive analytics, all kinds of new stuff here, and the CEO, who happens to be 60 or 70 years old, whatever they might be, they go, why do I need that? But these young folks grew up on that. They want every single bell and whistle that is part of their DNA. The technology is part of it. The internet is part of it. How you connect is part of it. And so you have to have that to be competitive. How does it affect us on our asset classes? Very simple. If you take a look at office, I just isolated office and retail. If you take a look at just office, the millennials who came into being here, when we had the boomers, as you see at the top box here, the boomers, they were roughly about 350 square feet. They wanted all the trappings of success. They wanted to have the dedicated office, the corner office. They wanted to have their own office. Then when the Xers came along, we said, hey, we got a great idea. We're going to put you in a cube, shove them in a cube, and we put them into the cube. Well, we reduced the amount of square footage right there down to about 250 square feet per employee on an average basis, and cubes became a big deal. Well, the millennials have shown up, and we're now down to about less than 150 square feet per employee. We're putting more people in places because we're working more collaboratively. We're working much more on creative office space designs. We're looking at much differently of how we did it. And so as you look at that kind of thing going on here, this impact on leasing, it's why we have so much shadow office space in the country today. It's why most office tenants are releasing, but they're redesigning the TIs and the improvements to make there a more productive environment, to put more people in the same space, to make it more exciting, to make it more dynamic. And that's why HR directors are more involved in that. All this happens just because the millennials are really forcing our hand relative to how they view the world, particularly in the office. But millennials want this. They want work-life balance, all those things, the flexible schedules. But 81% of millennials want to choose their work, their own work, like what they do. They don't want to be told always what to do. They want to have the option of doing it. So they want all of those aspects of office space. But the thing about it in retail is very different. And we used to go where the baby boomers had to trust the brand. Now the millennials clearly want to trust the experience. Groceries, food as a necessity. Millennials wanted food as a nutrient. Frequency of shopping. Boomers are much more structured because they work hours and they shop on Fridays or Saturdays or whatever it might be here. Millennials shop as needed, kind of 24/7. I will bet anyone in this room here today $100. If you called our daughter today and said, what are you having for dinner? She'd go, oh, gee, dinner, I forgot about it. Then she runs down to Whole Foods and gets something to eat. I mean, she doesn't think that far in advance. She responds to the moment in time. And that happens. So you can see all the things that happen there. Where you have restaurants, places to eat, places to connect. All those things are. And that begins to change. And as millennials become more and more of the population, the dominant generation today, and they'll increasingly get out as the other folks start dying off, is they're going to dominate it. And that's why the whole shift is happening inside our industry because of that. So what are some characteristics of a marketplace? You say, well, where do millennials want to go? Where do they want to hang out? What do they want to do? They like places that have major colleges and universities. They want places that have robust light rail systems. They like to go around. They like to use the zip cars and Uber, and they want to ride their bikes. They want to do things not always in a setting where it requires a car. They want creative class opportunities. That means jobs that are much more in a creative class, whether it's architecture or finance or whatever. All of those kind of things are there. They want a diverse environment where culture, sports, entertainment, dining options are available. It can't be in a remote area. Not out of balance politically. They don't want to be too far left. They want to be too far right. They want to have a little more straight down the middle. They want to have infrastructure that encourages innovation and entrepreneurism. And people, go out and start your own business. Get excited. They don't want to be in places that are confining and don't encourage that kind of innovation. Walkable retail, and obviously the whole Uber stuff at the end. All that is the kind of places they want to go to. And it's why corporations across the country, identifying markets across the country and saying, that's where we're going to relocate to, that's where we want to build our business, that's where we want to consolidate to. All those things are picking those cities across the country and doing that. And there's about 50 of them or so that they're primary. What's their view of money? Millennials have an interesting view of money. 75% of millennials today track their expenses very, very carefully, because they're not making a hell of a lot, but they track it very carefully. They save about 8% of their salary every year. 39, almost 40% worry about the finances, though, every single week. They spend a lot, about $1.3 trillion in consumer spending, but they don't trust financial institutions. They're moving away. They don't trust banks. And so what's the result of that? Well, you know what? They stay renters longer. They do not have the ability to buy the starter home. It's not about low interest rates. It's not there. They do not have the deposits. They do not have the money that allows them to do that. And why would they get deposits today in a bank when the bank is paying no interest? They don't trust the banks. That's why they go to crowdfunding. They go to a lot of different places like that. Lower household expenditures because they aren't making as much money. So it's lower retail sales that'll happen there. They look at alternative sources for capital, and clearly they're looking for other income generators. Our daughter, who works at Florida State University, she and two of her roommates, they rented a house. They made last year $5,000 off of Airbnb. $5,000 she made. Just renting out to alumni coming back for all the football games and renting out to mothers and fathers bringing their child around for the college tours. That's all they did. And they made $5,000. This is how they made more money to offset the other expenses that they might have. And what are some talent trends with millennials? We look at talent and how you've been to recruit them. We're clearly seeing that these generations are shifting. We're clearly seeing from 1995 to 2015, the millennials are beginning to move into that workforce in a massive way. By 2020, 46% of the workforce will be millennials. 2020, and we're in 2016 right now. So when they're 46% of the workforce, 45% of millennials want some form of transportation alternative. They've got to have that, or it's not going to be attractive for them to want to work in that marketplace. Only 70%, or 70%, you can say either way you want to look at it, of college students believe it's necessary to be in the office on a regular basis. It means 30% don't think it's necessary. 29% of today's college students believe it's their right, a right, not a privilege, to work remotely. What do you mean I can't work remotely? I mean I can't work from home on Thursdays. Why do I have to come in at 10 o'clock, or at 8 o'clock? I want to come in at noon. They believe they have the right to do that. 95% of them want work-life balance. They're the highest statistic on millennials. And 70% of millennials will quit their jobs citing the lack of leadership development. You're not helping me grow personally. You're not helping me go professionally. And that's huge. And 66 expect to have a different job within 5 years because they're young and they're going to change jobs. And 31% of millennials, 31% of them want spaces to socialize with other workers, other people like them. That's why offices are being reconfigured. That's why we're reshaping our industry around a generation who views things much differently. 78% of millennials will choose a company to work for based upon their perception of whether that company is innovative, creative. 50% of them believe the organization can do a lot more to develop leaders, which means that those firms who are not developing leaders are going to lose young talent. And those of you that can provide great training opportunities for young people are going to attract young people and retain young people. 67% of millennials, 67, almost over 2/3, believe that online degrees are as good as a traditional degree. They are discounting what they learned in 4-year institutions. And you will see more and more companies, as you're seeing today, all the online training programs, real estate firms are going across the country. Online training programs are viewed as a way of doing this. So they're viewing that their education is going to be much more specialized, and online perfections of that will help them along the way. 81% want to work hard, but they like a more 9-to-5 structure. 75% think they're authentic, and they're not going to do anything that compromises their values, clearly. 48% say all they want to do is work for 2 firms because they want that work-life balance. They want to keep changing if they have to after they get the job they like. 84% want to make a difference in the world. Idealistic? Perhaps. Has every generation faced that? Probably. But this generation is more hooked on it than any other because of the way that they have been raised, as I talked about earlier. And only 30% want to work in an unpleasant environment. So what happens? We survey over 500 real estate firms every year. We ask them what kind of benefits they're providing to employees and compensation and everything. And so I just pull out some statistics from that survey that we just completed. And you can see real estate firms, if I went back 10 years from now, these numbers are dramatically less. But they've really increased by 100, 200%. Allowing telecommuting, allowing for flex time, subsidized or free parking, business casual days. That's a huge thing. All those things, online workout facility, paying for professional memberships in organizations, tuition reimbursement. This is occurring nationally in real estate firms. And so as they change that orientation, so does the nature of which we run our businesses. And that makes us very, very different than we were a few years ago. So here's some predictions. Some predictions that are going to, kind of shake you up, not intended to shake you up, but clearly meant to give you a perspective of the impact that millennials are having into the future here. The first one is that we are moving to a cashless society. And Sweden is already about 90% cashless right now, whether it's Apple Pay or Square or PayPal or Google Wallet or whatever. But as that begins to go, and this is what the young folks are doing. I travel every day. I go to a lot of stores at the airports and stuff, and I'll see millennials come in there, and they'll buy a pack of gum or a thing of candy, and they'll put their credit card out. There's no cash. Everything is just $2, $4, $3. That wasn't the way we were raised. Well, why can't you put $5 out? You go to my daughter, our infamous daughter, you go to her wallet, she probably has 20 bucks in her wallet. I mean, the kid carries no money at all. They're going to this cashless society. The impact upon how we shop through the internet and how we utilize our retail tenants is going to be dramatic, and we're moving in that direction. 20 to 30% of real estate firms are going to be gone, clearly be gone by 2025. And so the young millennials today are asking the question, I don't want to be with an old, aging firm. I want to be with a young, dynamic, hip, creative, a firm that's going places, that's making a difference in the world, making a difference in the community in which we have here, making that kind of impact. That's important to them. And if they don't have that, you'll be viewed as just old, tired, stale, and out the door. And young people are the absolute key to our success going forward. I think we'll see 35 to 40% of training will be online. We will see this online training going on because they are used to seeing that. As I said to you before, they showed that they value online training higher than a college degree. I mean, from a regular institution. So it's going to be much more on demand. But what kind of training are they going to offer? They're going to offer gamesmanship, brinksmanship training, because these kids were raised on games. It's not going to be the traditional training module you're all been accustomed to. It has to have a lot more entertainment value and challenges and gamesmanship kind of activities to make them learn. That will change HR in every one of your firms. It will change the online systems that are available to you. I think you're going to see online retail sales really could be almost 19%, about 7% now. And many shopping centers will be rendered obsolete. They will no longer be relevant. Because why? Because they can buy via the internet. They can use that. The biggest problems we have right now in multifamily is all the boxes that are coming into multifamily buildings, offices. And the same is happening to regular offices, because if they're working and they're not home, where did the box go? This whole online has created a massive amount of industries, problems, and situations because of that. But online sales is going, and you're going to see a lot of retail stores go out of business because they cannot be competitive for that. How do you be competitive? You're going to have to do programmatic things at your shopping centers. You're going to have to bike shows, car shows, travel shows, sports shows. You might have a 5K breast cancer awareness walk that originates at your center. You're going to have to have an Uber space, or you're going to have a zip car space, or you're going to have other things that attract people programmatically to those shopping centers. They will not come just for one event. I think we're going to see, as a result of the impact of millennials, certified underwriters emerge in real estate. The certified underwriters are going to underwrite real estate transactions. This will probably be done by an accounting firm or law firm or people of that specialty. Because the millennials are they're going to be used to the auction.coms, they're going to be used to the internet for virtual tours, making offers, looking at all packages, doing that kind of stuff, but they want it in a point-and-click world. And so the way we're going to minimize a downfall is by having certified underwriters of assets. If I knew that PwC, or KPMG had already done the initial underwriting of that asset, then they've given it the kind of the good housekeeping seal of approval. And that's an easier transaction. I can do point and click. I don't have to do that by myself. And I think you're also going to see about half the brokers will be gone. Because the brokers in the past were they were about the deal, about a commission, about the end of the event, and then they'd move on. Where the millennials have driven much more about relationships, value add. I want to have a longer term opportunity with these individuals. And they're using much more analytics. They're using much more business platforms in order to engage in the customer. Oops, I hit the wrong one here. I think that home ownership is going to drop down to the high 50s. We peaked at 69%, but the boomers are not buying. They do not have the money to buy the first time. And so as we drop down from 69%, we're in the mid to low 60s right now. We predicted a few years ago in our newsletter it'd be in the low 60s. 59% is a possibility. That means we're having a huge amount of demand for multifamily, clearly a demand for that asset class. Now, you'll say, well, Chris, what's going to happen when they have kids? How's that all going to work? There's going to be a big switch happening in about 5 to 7 years. And what's going to happen here is the aging boomers are going to move into the urban areas, into the walkable communities, into those areas because they're retiring, and they're going to rent their homes out to the millennials who are going to have their children and want to have the more suburban environment, have a dog and picket fence, whatever they're going to have, right? But all that's going to happen. And those changes are going to make an impact on real estate. As boomers get older, they do not want to have the big house sitting there by themselves, just the husband and wife looking at each other, when they can be in a community, by a college, by a university, by a hospital, by a downtown, by a walkable area. That's going to be exciting to them. And so that shift will happen. That's going to cause a lot of redevelopment opportunities in every single city across this country. I think we're going to see fines. We're going to see taxes and fines for buildings that are not classified as a green building. I believe that the government is going to do that. I think they're going to make real estate companies the energy czar of America. But why? The millennials have raised the bar in terms of how we view the environment, how we view sustainability, how we view the way in which we impact our communities. And so this energy standard, what will be is that if you are not energy efficient, and you cannot meet energy standards, you will pay an additional taxes, you will pay additional costs, you will pay additional fees because of that. It's in Portland, it's in Berkeley, it's a number of other cities have already adopted this. If you're not energy efficient, it's going to be difficult. I think you're going to see Amazon controlling 15-20% of grocery sales. And that's huge. They're not there now. I'm on a board of a large grocery chain, very big, large grocery chain. And when Amazon came there and said, look, we're going to control the grocery business. And we're going to try and control the online business. We're going to try the grocery business as well. They want to do that. And there's probably very few people in this room here who have not purchased something on Amazon, who have not clearly bought some item, whether it's a food item or non-food item from Amazon. And as the delivery system become more efficient, that's going to be in place there. What you're going to see on these systems right now is you're going to see 7-Elevens across the country, and 7-Eleven be one of those, where they're going to put massive box receptacles at the 7-Elevens. And you will be able to order anything you want, anytime you want, have it delivered to the 7-Eleven of your choice. You get an email when it arrives. You walk up with your iPhone. You put it up there. It'll open up the door automatically. It'll give you a code, and you can open up the door automatically. That's what they're going to start doing. They're going to control the delivery system. They're going to control how you buy. You will not be going to the traditional stores. You will not be doing the things like that because of the way that's been structured. I think women in real estate are going to comprise nearly 40% of the C-suites. Now, why is that? Because the millennials right now, they are the ones that are in college. Almost 67, 68% of college enrollees today are women. And only a third are men. They are dominating. The men are the loser group, the women are the winner group. I mean, at the end of the day, they're coming out of there and they're going to be in positions of responsibility and power, and they are going to control a lot of things that go on. So if you don't have a very aggressive diversity program in terms of just women and minorities and all that stuff, you're going to have to get one, because that is a reflection of where our colleges are today and where the talent is available today. I think you're going to see human resource directors making leasing decisions. Now, why is that? Why isn't the CEO or why isn't the director of real estate? Well, they'll be involved. But the HR director is going to make that decision because the millennials want to have a workplace environment that is attractive, and they want to go work for that company and stay at that company and be productive in that company. And HR directors across the country are giving more responsibility. So if you're a broker, you're going to have to get to know a lot more of the HR directors, learn a lot more about worker productivity and how you can generate that kind of activity that comes out of that. That's exciting, very exciting for that. I think you're going to see a requirement that everyone needs to be licensed. You're going to see property managers, everybody's going to have a license of some sort. I'm doing work with Bowman right now. I'm doing work with IRM in particular right now as well. And what they're talking about doing is changing all the titles. You're no longer going to have property managers. Some of those titles could change because you're no longer managing a property. You're managing the environment inside the property. It's what's inside the four walls that counts more than just the four walls. And why would you change a title? Because the millennials do not want to come to a job that says, you can be a property manager. Or would you like to have a career as an enterprise leader, as a business director, a business manager, running a multi-million-dollar business? That's a different recruitment tool. But we have got to change as an industry, or we are not going to get the millennials and the younger people coming up if we don't change our titles. We have firms we work with across the country who are changing their titles without worrying about Bowman or IRM or anything else. They're changing their titles. And they're doing, they don't call it HR, they call it talent management. There's all kinds of things they're doing because they want to connect with that generation. They want to have that, so don't be surprised. Don't be surprised to see this as well. Because just like you're going to get fined for being, you're going to be the energy czar, so being fined for inefficiency, every single building that's going to be sold in America ultimately is going to have an escrow account established. And that escrow account will require you to make that building, convert that building into a minimal government green standard. Not Energy Jar or something like that. It's not going to be USGBC, but it'll be some standard. And they'll escrow monies for that. That's going to impact every brokerage transaction. All the values that are there. But there's no way that the government feel that you are going to do that willingly. So they just put that escrow account out there, and they're going to do that. And there's even talk right now where if you get, and this is just talk, because I hear from our clients who serve on these boards in Washington, D.C. that work with the government, and they're talking about also, well, gee, if you're getting a loan from a federally institution, of FDIC institution, then, or Freddie or Fannie, that's kind of government subsidized, you know what? You need to apply to the green standard. Now, if you want to go buy your own debt in your own equity, you don't have to do it. They're going to push it upon you to be that. And why is that? Millennials are demanding green. They're demanding energy efficiency. They're demanding that the future of this country is based a lot more on our ability to manage our resources much more intelligently. And the reason that these numbers don't connect right here, I forgot to tell you that, is because those of you that get our newsletter, we predicted 100 predictions. So I just pulled out a couple of them. That's why these are the numbers in our newsletters that you all can have access to if you give me your cards afterwards. But anyway, this last prediction here is the cell phones are going to be replaced. The reason I say ... is because, I want you to read the newsletter, no. The reason I say that is because the cell phones are going to start becoming foldable. They're going to be just folded pieces of paper that you can fold out, you can twist, you can change all around there. You're also going to have, in your glasses and in your contact lenses, you can have virtual reality. You can see people and talk to people. When someone calls, you click on it, and they'll come through your glasses or through your contact lens. You can see that person's visual image right there. That's happening. You will see in your lifetime, you're going to see every single child born with a digital chip in their shoulder or in their heel, which will track all their medical records and keep them better informed with the smart walls we'll have and all that technology. I'll give you one more prediction. We're seeing it today. We're seeing the virtual restaurants. I bet you no one here has ever been to a virtual restaurant. But a virtual restaurant, just like Uber, just like Airbnb, what they're doing is that Mr. and Mrs. Smith here decide that they want to have a dinner, and they're going to serve chicken dinner and mashed potatoes and this and a 82 Cabernet. And they advertise that up on the internet, and they'll take 100 people, take 10 people at $100 to come and have the dinner with you in your home for that special dinner with all the special sauces. And then that dinner, people come, if you never know, and you have a nice socialization. They leave, they write up on Yelp, that was the greatest dinner, that's the greatest thing in the world. Mr. and Mrs. Smith goes up there and does it again. We're having steak dinner, it's $150 now, or it's $200 now. We will have virtual restaurants across the country where people will interchange like that. And millennials will be a driver of a lot of that. The same thing, again, like Airbnb. All that changes. And those are the changes that dramatically impact our industry. So you are at the apex. You are at the beginning part of a generational shift that is fundamentally changing the way we do business. And as such, you have got to raise the bar in every one of your organizations and say, what is our millennial strategy? How are we addressing recruitment? How are we addressing our asset designs? How are we addressing our investment strategy? How are we addressing everything, leadership development? Every single component has got to be addressed with that generation. Our biggest conflicts in our industry today are because we have generational conflicts, generational miscommunications, generations who are not talking on the same wavelength, are not communicating well. Best-in-class firms always communicate on a real-time basis. It's amazing to me when I go to big REITs and big multifamily REITs and other people like that and talk to them. I walk in the room and there's a bunch of 60-year-old guys sitting around, I call them male, pale, and stale, but, but these old folks are there, and I say, wait a minute, you're running into millennials and young people, and you have no one, the voice of the customer is not represented? I don't get it. The same thing with shopping center people. So we have got to change the way in which we do our business. And if we do, this incredible opportunity in front of us will create more opportunities than all of you can think about. But you are in the front row seat of one of the greatest generational shifts of all time. Thank you very much.